everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Split, the Young Adult Book Review Podcast for readers and writers. I'm Brian Cohen, the author of the Ted Saves the World series. That's Robert Scanlon, the author of the Dreamer Chronicles, and we're here right now.
We are? What? When?
What time is it? Is that what you're asking?
Time?
Oh,
year?
Time? What year? Oh, man. I don't know what year it is because I'm from the future.
You are?
Like the characters in this book that we're going to review today, The Here and Now by Anne Brashares. And this was an interesting one. I liked it and was having fun with it. And today I was writing the quick summary. I look at the reviews and, man, a lot of people didn't like this book.
I know. I was looking at them last night as well. And it's interesting, isn't it? She's obviously got popularity with the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, yeah.
Which I have not read. Have you?
No, I have not.
No.
But we could put it on the list.
We could put it on the list, that's right. And so it seems to me a lot of the reviews were expressing disappointment because it wasn't that book. And it didn't.
Because it wasn't about girls and pants and it was a young adult time travel book.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, look, time travel is almost impossible to write without plot holes because anyway you look at it, there's always going to be something. And I think I was listening to Risa Walker be interviewed about Time Bound, and she was saying, you just got to kind of pick a particular path and deal with it that way and be consistent. And, and I like the one of the quotes, I think, from Stephen Hawking in the book, which is that she has a few quotes here and there, and the one is, look, if time travel was actually possible, we'd be inundated with tourists from the future, and since we're not, presumably it doesn't work. So, but it's fiction, and you're supposed to enjoy fiction, and as you said, it's meant to be entertaining, and this was it was entertaining enough for me.
There's issues with it, but it was entertaining enough. I had a good time. Yeah. See, I mentioned during the last show, it's like, oh, this looks like a regular book for once, but no, it's another fantasy book. It's so funny. Well, shall I get into the summary and then we'll do the rest?
Yes.
All right. Prenna James is a time traveler. Her family, and others from her time live on the outskirts of the present day after escaping from a future where a mosquito-borne illness has taken the form of a plague. Prenna and the others follow strict rules to never interfere with history, never reveal their origin, and to never, ever be intimate with the time natives. When Prenna falls for Ethan Jarvis, all rules go out the window, and a race to stop a catastrophe is thrown into action. So, our first time travel book, right?
Is that right? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, I think it's right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm from the future.
No, you're right. Well, as we know, there's holes in the book because time travel has holes, like you said.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really enjoyable. I was compelled to see what happened, given the underlying mystery of how the plague began and how Prenna's father fit in. I thought, I wanted to go from A to B to C to D. I knew it wasn't next week's book, Steelheart, for instance, which was out of control good. But this was entertaining, and so I enjoyed it and wanted to see what happened and finish the book.
Yeah, we're certainly not split on that. I think it's satisfying. It's a good thriller. I found it quite a page turner. I read it in a day. I picked it up.
Oh, wow.
I picked it up from the library in the morning and finished it in the evening. And it was a weekend. It was a Saturday. So
without time travel.
Yes. Oh, shh! My secret. And with other chores in between. So it's eminently readable. It's not something you have to particularly linger on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have, interestingly, although it's a kind of a fairly straightforward tale, it doesn't have a Hollywood ending, which surprised me as well. So, and I quite liked that, that it wasn't what you expected, although it is satisfying.
That's probably why some of the reviews were low.
That could be true. Yeah. We can't really say why because it's a spoiler. There are sexual references and some kissing, so it's definitely an older YA reader. And a fair warning: there's some pretty violent scenes in there and death. So. Yeah, it's more of an adult YA read, I guess, which might be why the reviews too, because
Because Sisterhood goes a little lower.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Look, I thought she handled the time paradoxes quite neatly. You know, you do really have to shunt aside the idea of plot holes with time travel. And, you know, she mostly ignored everything. She's like, right, okay, these 1,000 migrants came back from the future in order to attempt something, supposedly. And, you know, and apart from the idea of creating forks in our reality, she kind of ignored everything else and just got on with it and made it a thriller. And I thought that was okay. It's like the time travel didn't actually take the place. It wasn't really part of the setting. It just gave them some rules.
Yeah, that's true. There weren't people time traveling throughout the book. There was really just time traveling that had happened once, and we see it once.
Yes.
And then we move ahead from that.
Yeah.
So, no, that's true. It wasn't really... It wasn't really used as a device in the story, just a device to set up the story.
Exactly right. And you know, we find out pretty quickly early on the 12 rules that they're supposed to live by, and they kind of have to keep themselves to themselves and not really be, you know, intimate or disclose anything to what they call a time native. And so, you know, I thought that some of that was it was clever. Maybe it wasn't executed in the best way, but it was, you know, it had to be there. So, but to me, it was really all about Brenna and Ethan and, you know, the unraveling plot. Yeah.
A thought on those 12 rules and those early scenes with the leader and everything. In, say, a trilogy or in a book where nothing is wasted, Brenna comes back face to face with that leader, but that we don't see that in this book.
No.
And it doesn't seem like there is going to be a sequel from reading author notes and whatnot.
Yeah, I didn't see any author notes, so I didn't
I think it would be like I think I'd be fine with reading a sequel if there was one, but I don't think Brashears has that in mind. So I don't know.
It seems like a standalone, doesn't it? It really did.
Yeah.
And you know, look, I think again, I think it might have been Writer Walker again. I was listening to talking about how difficult it is to maintain a story and a plausible arc over several books in a time travel series. It's hard enough keeping all those plot holes out plugged when you're writing just one. And I love time travel. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic. It's some of the most exciting sci-fi. And I was thinking about this the other day that, you know, maybe where it's done well is when you get time dilation effects or relativity effects, such as in Ender's Game series, for example, where as the books go on, there's some significant differences in what happens. I won't talk in detail about it, not appropriate here. But because of lengthy space travel, and that's caused effectively time differences. Relativity. So, and that's real science. So there's no denying that, and that was quite clever and a good way of shifting a setting. But it was. I quite like the premise. You know, we never really find out how these 1,000 migrants exited the future. They're in 2095 or something. Is that right? I think
something like that. Yeah.
And they come back to 2014. Ethan happens to, when he's much younger, happens to spot Brenna. You know, just rock up with no clothes in a swamp somewhere, and he's out fishing.
Yeah, very Terminator-esque travel back through time.
Absolutely, but it's okay. It sets up the mystery really nicely. It sets up the inciting incident where, you know, he recognizes her kind of inked on tattoo and such, and so, you know, and that's a prologue. So it's all set up with a prologue, which was fine, and you know, I think the stakes are well set. Everything's fine. It's a solid, satisfying story with a few hard to believe scenes.
Yeah, and you know, we have those in our books, so, you know, we can't complain too much.
Oh, totally.
Brenna's a little annoying. I feel like she eventually kind of learns to hold her own, and it's believable when she does. And at the beginning, though, she's a little annoying, and then that's okay, I think. But it probably kept me a little bit from enjoying it wholeheartedly. Like, say, a Throne of Glass, where we have an awesome, fully formed Superwoman from the beginning.
Well, but if you come back,
and we wouldn't want that.
That's
we
right.
Wouldn't want that.
But it's true, though, isn't it? If you look at what some of the real high-profile YA big sellers are, they often have. If it's from the female perspective, they often have the fully formed, or at least very quickly developed. Picked up the skills in almost no time at all. So suddenly, like in Divergent, they're suddenly able to handle a gun with stunning accuracy. And Penna doesn't do that. It unfolds. Although the plot unravels quickly, she has to unfold a little bit more slowly, and we do feel her tension with Ethan. Some of the reviews questioned that all of a sudden. One look from him and she's fallen in love, and so there is a bit of insta love, I think, in this. That's
but they said that they'd been in school together for years and they'd been friends. So I don't agree with that assertion.
Well, I didn't say it. It was reviewers that said it. And
I'm disagreeing with the reviewers.
Yes, I didn't write it myself. Actually, my notes, I said the relationship between them is actually quite well done. And I thought
I think so
that we really felt her dilemma, along with the sense that the growing sense that something's not quite right about this 1,000 people coming back in time, and that she's not being told the truth. The things that I didn't like were the silliness of, I'm not going to spoil it, but they wear glasses. They all have to wear glasses because apparently traveling back in time did something to their eyesight. And so some of the premises I thought were half-baked.
That one's a little silly.
Yeah, I put it to one side because I was enjoying the story.
Yeah, like what if someone gets contacts?
That's right.
Plot device ruined. No, that is a little silly, and then they could just put the glasses in a box and they're fine. They're not surveilled, but it's pretty. There are some things here and there that were silly, but
and what's done really well though is, sorry, I interrupted you. There's a temptation in something like this to create a tremendous backstory, and the only real backstory is the prologue, which in itself is actually quite intriguing. And there's a mystery there that's developed, and we understand quite clearly as soon as we're out of the prologue and into present day that what's happened quite clearly. So we have to wait for that to unfold in the first part of the book, which is good. But you didn't get any heavy-handed flashbacks. It was, and I really liked the fact that the apocalypse in the future was something kind of inane and mundane. It was just mosquitoes. It wasn't it wasn't humanity wrecking itself. Well, it was global warming. Okay, so global warming creates these issues, and we've got hot, humid conditions all over the place, and dengue fever is smashing everybody. And in Australia, here in the north of the state that I'm in, people die from dengue fever. So it's realistic.
I used to write about that in my freelance writing days about dengue fever.
You're even more of an expert than I am then.
I'm an expert. And so getting into the writer's perspectives, the plot made sense.
Yes.
And that is a believable future. I have that right there. So.
Yes. I think, and you're right. It's some of those premises make sense. I did feel personally that it was a story that's stronger in its feelings and its relationships than plot. The plot's pretty transparent. It's weak in places, but I forgave that because there's no adverb heaviness in here. The writing style doesn't try too hard. It's just a fun read, and it's got a good hot pace.
I totally agree. It didn't feel overbearing at any point. It was just kind of lightly going along. Maybe some additional details here and there might have given the world a little more flavor. There was maybe a little blandness to it. Yes. I don't know.
Yes.
I think that it didn't have too much distinctiveness, and especially when it comes to, and this is a note I have, everyone other than basically Brenna and Ethan were kind of non-characters. There wasn't much to them. A little bit of fleshing out might have helped in that area.
Maybe you could say, well, perhaps a little bit her father.
Maybe a little bit.
But not played strongly enough to have made a difference as a character, perhaps.
I agree.
And the other thing I think that's awkward for this book, before I ask you a very difficult question,
I'm excited.
is that there's a very strong theme that comes through, which is that the human race is in danger of destroying our planet unless we change our behaviours. So there's a clear moral stance. Although that doesn't really bother me specifically, it's definitely front and centre of the book, and it's a little bit preachy in places. We get the monologues from people, trying to talk down to other, well, maybe even the reader. Now, I figured, well, a younger audience, because the accepted philosophy for writers is that if you're writing for middle grade, up to say 12 years old, then they love these ideas of heroes and people saving the planet. Once you go past that and you're into then puberty and then identity issues, what they want is to know who they are and where they fit in the world, and to have some sense of personal power. And with this one, because of the subject and the way the romance unfolds, it's not so suitable for the 12s and unders, yet the moral message certainly is. But the moral message would probably really just be totally out of joint for the older teenage YA reader who's going, oh, come on, just stop pushing the whole thing about greenies with me, would you?
So maybe this is some of the reason why the reviews are low.
That could be right. Yeah, it could be. So my question to you, though, is would you be happy if you'd written this book?
I think that I would be happy that it's stuck together and it's cohesive. I would definitely, by my taste, I would want to make sure the characters had a few more quirks to them. But
yes.
I mean, it is.
You like your quirky characters. If you want quirky characters, you've got to read Ted Saves the World series. It's full of quirky characters.
But
and underdogs. I like underdogs.
Yeah. I think I would be happy, but I think I would write a sequel.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would. I actually think it's better than my first book. I think my first book is oversimplistic. Having said that, it is specifically aimed at the 12 and under audience. So I was writing for that. Having read so many of the books and reviewed so many that we have had now, I can see that I could have included a lot more complexity in there quite easily. And not that I think I talk down ever to the reader. I just think that, when you're a novice, when you're a newbie author, you string things together, you think, oh, that's brilliant. but then you realize you've taken 3 chapters, to do something that someone like Brandon Sanderson would do in a paragraph, So I do think there's a real skill to putting something together that's a pacey read, that's fun, that's satisfying, and Anne Brashares has done that. So yeah, I think I would have been happy to have written this. I think it's a shame for her that she's obviously written something that was really far more appealing to a certain type of reader than before. And so if this had been released to a younger audience, maybe tamed a little bit in places with the violence, not so much with the romance, but I think the violence, then she could have picked up a younger audience that would absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The Doctor Who audience, basically, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that's all I have for writer's perspective.
Yeah, me too.
Any other?
No.
Would you like to go first or second with takeaways, sir?
Yeah, I'll go first if you don't mind.
All right, go for it.
I said this before. I fully expected a Hollywood ending because much of the plot follows a pretty good formula, and you do expect it. But I was quite pleasantly surprised by the resolution, and that made it an even more fun read. That it didn't kind of play out with a sort of, here we go. They rode off into the sunset together. And that doesn't happen. And it's not sad. It's just it's plausible.
Yeah, bittersweet.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So, good takeaway. Takeaway 2, I would say flesh out all your characters to provide a more 3-dimensional world.
Yes. It would certainly, if there was a sequel in there, you'd want to see that. I think a sequel wouldn't easily stand the same characterization, that's for sure. You'd want some arc coming through in there.
Yes, for sure.
And takeaway 3, yes, he's holding up 3 fingers there for those of you who are on the audio feed. The premise is pure sci-fi. It's time travel, but it's a straight thriller with a puzzle to solve. And I quite like that. As I said at the start, time travel doesn't really get in the way. It just sets up the rules and the premise. But basically, they're on a mission to find out the truth. And I like that. I thought that was fun. Good thriller.
I agree. And when you mix genres like that and throw in a mystery, it's a recipe for success.
It is. Recipes for success are good. We like recipes for successes.
We love recipes for successes.
That's right. And we need a prompt for a recipe.
We need a prompt. Imagine that you had to live by Prenna's strict rules. Would you be likely to rebel? Why or why not? Simple. But the best prompts are simple, and they prompt you to be thrown into what would I write to that? What people would write to that? What they would write to that, of course, they would tweet at the Split Book.
You know why I couldn't put at the Split Books? It's really annoying. It just wouldn't let me put the S. And I don't know why.
Was it too long?
Yeah, but I don't understand that.
Boo. You can also use the prompts to write us something at the comments section, which I know I'm finally getting notifications about.
Me too.
At thesplitbookreviews.com. You can always email us with suggestions for future books to review at podcast@thesplitbookreviews.com. We're always happy to take on new suggestions as we propel our way forward to number 50. Coming up soon.
Can you believe that? In fact, talking of suggestions, next week's book, Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, episode 47, is actually recommended by Lucky Calicar to us. It was already actually in my radar, so it just escalated it. It wasn't officially on the list, but I'd seen it a few times and thinking, and then you said, I'd really like to read that too. And but I thought this was great. A recommendation by Lucky Calicar. Lucky, you have an author name. You have a famous author name already. You should write. I mean, that's a name for an author if you ever saw one.
I'll give you all our prompts from our back episodes for sure. All right. Well, I'm really excited to talk about Steelheart next week.
Me too.
Come on back here for The Split. I'm Brian Cohen. That's Robert Scanlon. Come back here next week, and we will be here in the past, present, and future.
Exactly. If you're already at episode 47 now, please appear right in front of us in this one so you can prove time travel is real.
Thank you guys for watching. Somewhere on this page is a subscribe button to the Split channel. We do reviews every week. We would love it if you followed us every single week. Isn't that right, Robert?
That's exactly right. Follow us now. Hit the subscribe button.
Do it.